Do you know your husband? Do you know your child? Do you know your mother? Do you know your grandmother? How many people do you really, really know? Do you want to build a relationship with someone? If you really want to build a relationship, you need to find out what their fears, what their dreams. I don't mean interrogate them. How much did you pay for that dress? Where do you get your clothes? How much do you weigh? And so forth. Don't ever do that. But I mean, find out what they're really thinking. Spend enough time with them that they'll feel free talking with you about their desires, their fears, their deep down feelings. Almost everyone wants to talk with someone about their feelings, but they can't find anyone who will sit still long enough to listen. I have girls at Hyles Anderson College who come in and they want to tell their feelings to someone. Not things that they shouldn't tell me. Not things that it's not good for them to dredge up all the time. But I mean fears that they just haven't been able to get out to anyone. But if I'll sit there, just quietly sit there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, they'll finally, hesitantly begin to tell me what they really want to tell me. What they've always wanted to tell someone and what they've always wanted to share. You know, like, Ms. Evans, is it really crazy that I would think I could be a pastor's wife? You know, I came from an alcoholic home, that kind of thing. And I've had this in my background. Should I even think that I could be a pastor's wife? And they've just never wanted to share that with anyone else. I got to thinking, how many of our own relationships do we really have a real relationship with? If your husband's unemployed, do you know how it's affecting him? Do you have any idea how the men are feeling throughout the nation who are unemployed? I can remember when I worked in the black community 20 to 25 years ago, and at that time in the South, wives, the women, could get employment so much better and quicker than the black men could. And so, of course, black men were leaving their families as fast as they could, because when you don't feel you're achieving and you don't feel you can take care of the situation, you want to run from it. Now, of course, the same thing is happening in the white community more and more. As men cannot supply for their families and the unemployment rates go up in certain areas, do you know how he really feels? He might act like, well, went out for another job today. I mean, to be rejected over and over and over again. My brother-in-law was with Braniff Airlines, a pilot for Braniff Airlines, when Braniff got axed, if you remember that time. All of a sudden, one morning, the wherever their planes were, they were locked, and the pilots couldn't even get home. I mean, they had to find ways on other airlines to get back to their home base. It was over. Now, Braniff has come back in a little way, but not much. I don't know how many of those Braniff pilots, I cannot recall the number, that the Braniff company believes took their lives eventually, divorced, went into alcoholism, because they could no longer supply the way they had been used to supplying for their families. Sometimes after a little while, a man will just sit and not even go out for a job anymore. And you think, well, why doesn't he get going and at least try? Sometimes after he's been rejected 10 or 12 times, he just doesn't have much strength to get up and try again. Do you have any idea what your husbands are feeling if they're unemployed, if they had to come home and say a layoff, a strike, or a plant has closed, or whatever it is? 2 young ladies who are staff members at Hyles Anderson College had husbands, are married to brothers who were laid off. A plant closed in our area recently, and they were saying, boy, they're just not acting the same at all. Of course they wouldn't act the same. Even if the plant closed and it wasn't their fault, you still feel rejected. As if you're not able to do much. If you've ever had your husband go through something like this, if there's someone in your church that's gone through something like this, are you sensitive to be able to meet their needs by listening to them at least? I was talking one day with a girl who's been married about 5 years, and they always went to the ocean for their vacations. And I said, oh, does your husband like the ocean, the water, better than the mountains? I love the mountains and the woods. I love the ocean also. And I can remember the first time I saw the ocean, and I love, it's a close second, but I just have to have trees. And I love the woods, and I love the wooded mountains, the hills with the wooded part, rather than the majestic. That's beautiful, but I'm not the majestic type. I'm more the, just the hill area, type person. And all those woods and so forth, And I said, oh, does your husband love the ocean more than the mountains? Because they never went to the mountains. And she said, I don't know. And later she talked to me, and she said, no, my husband loves the woods more. He just never told me. And I never bothered to find out because I love the ocean so much, and he went along. If we have good husbands who want us to be happy, we have to really learn them. We have to watch their eyes, or they'll let us do things just because they know we want to, not because that's what they prefer. And we go on year after year after year, maybe 25 years, maybe 30 years. Maybe then you die, he marries some other woman, and that woman finds out what he really likes, and he has a blast. I don't like that. Because we don't take the time to find out what they really... You have to kind of watch, you ask a good husband who wants a lot for you. You ask a good husband, can I do such and such? And he says, yes. But you could tell by the tone of voice. You can tell by the eyes that he'd rather you did something else. Just recently, out in Washington, last weekend, a young lady, they all seem young to me anymore. I guess she's in her late 30s. They've been married 13 years, a couple. And she was showing me pictures of herself and her husband when she had the prettiest red hair. And her hair's a pretty blonde now. And she said, I've kept it lightened. I said, you mean you've got that red hair under that light color and that's in that picture? And she said, yes. And her husband was sitting there, and I said, and he said something about, yeah, I married that cute redheaded. I said, you mean you prefer the red rather than the blonde? And he said, yes. And she said, you've never told me that. And she's going to go ahead and let her hair go back to its original color. He didn't want to not let her do something she wanted to do, so he just hadn't told her. But he had loved that cute little redhead. Do you really know your husband? Do you really know your children? Do you want to build a relationship? What do they really like? I know an older couple who have been married way over 50 years, where the woman has told me since they've been married 25, I've known them since they've been married 25 years, and she's always said, my husband doesn't care what I put before him. It really doesn't. He just eats whatever I put before him. He doesn't even taste it. He doesn't know what. And then when she became unable to cook, the people who were cooking for him found exactly what he wanted to eat. The very opposite of what she'd always fed him. She had decided what was good for them, and therefore she saw to it that that's what she fed him, and she told him that's what's good for him, so he didn't say anything. And he liked. You say, boy, that's not my husband. That's not my dad either. My dad's the kind that when he sat down, if there were a bunch of vegetables, he'd say, well, what am I supposed to eat? We didn't have anything but corn, beans, and peas. I didn't know there were other things. I didn't know about cauliflower and broccoli and all that stuff, let alone rutabaga and spinach and turnip greens and all that. I didn't know about it, And Mom cooked exactly what he wanted. Yet I'm sure in other areas he would have preferred things a little bit different, and she didn't even know it. Do you want to live at the preference level of your husband or the tolerance level? That's the question. We're going a step beyond now being this submissive business. Of course we know we're supposed to be submissive. This is way beyond submissive. This is just looking to see what you could do to make him happy, or just see what he would... And it's a beautiful circle. Once you start seeing what you could do to make him happier, he wants to make you happier. And it's just a beautiful circle that can get more beautiful as the years go by, as you really learn each other. You people who have been married 15 years, you don't know each other yet. And I've just been married 30 years. You people who have been married 50 years, you'll probably tell me you don't know your husband yet. If you're really really wanting to know your husband, really wanting to have a relationship with him, you're going to be watching for his every preference. You're going to pick up on, you said this to the people. You mean you like that better? I didn't know. You're going to pick up on everything, and you're not going to say, well, he told me it was all right. Or sometimes we say, now, did he absolutely forbid this? No, well, then you're not going against your husband, so it's okay. This is, do you want to live at his preference level or his tolerance level? Now, this talk on build a relationship with your husband, child, mother, grandmothers, build a relationship with your grandchildren. Now, with your grandchildren and your children, you're not so much looking for every little preference. You don't want to spoil them. Not that I don't think you can spoil children with too much love, but you can sure give them too many things. But do you really know what your grandchildren like? Do you know what as the jargon is with the teenagers, do you know what they're into? I don't know if that's very good slang or very good thinking even, but they like different things at different times in their lives. And young boys, they usually like sports, but you don't assume they do. You find out if they do. Mike Smith, who is my nephew and was a neighbor to Cheryl down here, liked the Chicago sports team so well. And his grandmother, his dad's mother, saw to it that she kept up with those ball games so she could talk to her grandson. She wanted to build a relationship. So he didn't have to go over there and sit and be bored to death and hate to go to grandma's because all she did was talk about the olden days. And he wanted to talk about sports. She was right there talking, and she was all crippled up with arthritis and could hardly move, but he loved to go to grandma's because she got on his level. Leave your world and enter the persons with whom you want to have a relationship, unless their world is illegal, immoral, fattening, or against the Bible. But leave your world. That's what's so nice, folks, about once in a while just being alone. There's times you want to just do what you want to do. The trouble with most of us is that's all the time. And that doesn't give you the satisfying, fulfilling relationships that giving up your way gives you. I have a little saying, give up your way several times a day. Never complain about it, and don't talk about it later. Giving up your way willingly, giving up your way willingly, several times a day, never complaining about it. Some of us never give up our way. If we do give up our way, we give it up storming and spouting every step of the way. Okay, I'll give it up my way, but boy, I'll tell you, I'm going to do like my mother when she told me, if you're going to give May baskets, you're going to give Gladys Prigg a one too. I said, if I have to give her one, I'm going to give that toilet paper one to her then, because it was made out of the inside of the roll of a toilet tissue. I mean, if I have to give up my way, I'm not going to do it willingly. And complaining all the way, and then talking about it, and letting everybody know, did you know I had to give up my way? You know, reminding your husband of it 25 times. I gave my way back in 1906. I remember the exact hour and the exact time, and that ought to be enough for the rest of the duration, you know, of our marriage. People, that the world's telling us, get your way. The Word of God says, put yourself last, and He put you first. Put yourself down, He put you up. Whatever the world's teaching you, just figure that the Bible is completely the opposite, and you'll just about have it right. I remember the times I used to be good for my mother, and it was very seldom. It seemed like I was always doing something bad. But I can remember how good I felt. Like if Mom said, clean the house, and you know, sometimes I threw everything under the bed, you know, and it didn't give me a really good feeling. And sometimes when she didn't tell me to clean the house, and I went ahead and cleaned it myself and did such a good job of it and gave up what I wanted to do, I had the best feeling. Don't you get the best feeling when you do what you're supposed to do? and what you know is going to make other people happy, and they turn around and do for you. That's what the people of the world don't understand. Not that we do it to get back, but the truth is we do get back. Whether it's heavenly rewards, whether it's here on earth, or whether it's just in our own mind and feelings, we get immediate gratification for giving up our way. And I think women are supposed to be adjusters. We ought to almost, I wish we would act a little more like people who are actresses and actors act. For instance, this skit, they got ready for it. They were ready. They came out. They had their, they had their apron. They had their tools. They had planned for it. But we don't plan for anything. When the kids come home at the end of the day, we go, "Oh, you're home already, huh?" Well, of course they don't. That doesn't build a relationship. Instead of setting an alarm and a half hour before they get ready to come home, get the house smelling good, put on the pan with the cloves and all that in it where they come in, and you're making it again a memory for them. They can remember how the house smelled, and having whatever you want to have for them that you think is the right kind of snack for them, having it ready. And it isn't always home-baked cookies either, folks. If you're not one who always has the home-baked cookies ready, don't get after yourself for it. And maybe you on the way home, maybe you're picking up some apples and some raisins and things like that, and you sit around, and even popcorn, the Eric Pop type especially, is a good snack. And so it doesn't have to be, if you're not a baker, you don't have to think, well, just because I don't bake, I can't build a relationship with my child. Oh, that's a bunch of foolishness. Or I used to think just because I didn't can fruit, the screwing on of the jars. Because my mother canned 500 quarts of fruit and vegetables every summer, and I loved them so much all winter long, I felt you weren't a good mother unless you did can 500 quarts of fruits and vegetables. Well, I did a lot of cooking, a lot of hard work before I was 32 or 3 when I started having back operations, but after that I didn't learn anything more that would take physical work because I knew I couldn't do it. For a long time I browbeat myself over the fact that I wasn't going to be able to can quarts of fruits and vegetables. Well, then I have other things I can do for my children, and I've done them too. They won't remember fruits and vegetables, but they're going to remember other things about me that I don't remember about my mother. Within our own personality range, we can be what we're supposed to be. It's not always the milk and cookies. If it is milk and cookies, fine. But it might be something else. Be your own unique self. But people, all of a sudden, I don't know if your kids, let's say your kids get home at 4. And at 3:30, you've got an alarm set. At 3:30, you get yourself fixed up and get ready to act the part of mother. I don't mean it's a big act, but I mean, let's put as much into it as an actress does. You know why we like to see plays and skits? Because they put themselves into it. Why don't we put ourselves into what we're doing? If you like my speaking, do you know why you like it? Some of you don't, but if you do like it, do you know why you do? You know I'm completely here. You know I couldn't possibly be thinking about anything else the way I go at it when I'm up here. Because when I'm up here, I'm a lady speaker. Now, when I get in the car with my husband, I'm a wife. I sit back and shut up. And it's really fun to shut up once in a while. Not too often, but once in a while. It's really neat to shut up. He mainly wants me to respond to him. He wants to tell me what he's been doing. He doesn't much care, what, he'll say to have a good meeting. I say, yeah, and everything. But he really wants to tell me what he did when I get home. And so we're many different people. It's sort of like this talking about a mother wears many different caps, a wife wears, it's anybody. If you're a single lady and you have a room at all, or an apartment, or a mobile home, and you have a job, and you have to take care of your own business, you have a multifaceted life. Every one of us has a multifaceted life. And if we would just get ready and stop stop and think he's coming home at 12. The kids are coming home at 4. And get ready for that transition and be ready to be a wife. Be ready to be a mother. And don't just let the day happen to you and say, oh, I don't know, I had so many interruptions. Your children shouldn't be an interruption. When they're all gone, you're wishing they would come home, and now they're home. You wish they wouldn't come home. And mainly the reason is because we don't act the part we're supposed to act. You ladies right now are supposed to sit here. Mrs. Christner, I know, goes out and speaks. But she's sitting here with her hands folded listening. Because she's a part of an audience right now. Even though this is her husband's church, she put me in charge of this meeting, of this speaking. Therefore, she is acting her part. Are you, each one of us are supposed to act a part. And if I went to a meeting, sometimes I go to a meeting and I'm not the speaker, then I'm to act my part. Or when the preacher was up here preaching, I was sitting down there listening with all my heart. Just as much as when getting up here, I am speaking. I was a part of an audience. And I was listening and trying to get and grasp everything he said, which, by the way, wasn't it very, very good. And I appreciate a preacher who can preach that way and in such a wonderful manner. But people, we have many, many parts of our lives. But do you have relationships where you really know folks? A few years ago, my husband and I were over at Carol Fry's parents' home in Tinley Park, Illinois, around Thanksgiving time. Just having I think my sister and brother-in-law, Jerry and Doris Smith, and their kids were over there. We were just having a supper at Bertha and Bud Fry's house in Tinley Park, Illinois. And Doris, my sister, had brought home some stupid game they had played somewhere where you put down what aggravated you a little bit. And put it out in the middle of the table. And I can't remember how the game went. It was quite a few years ago. Don't remember how the game went, but anyway, when someone picked up what aggravated my husband a little bit, it said, my car not having very much get up and go. And I looked at him and I said, I didn't know that had bothered him. Christian Womanhood supplies us with a car. It doesn't belong to us, but a company car, and the college supplies us with a company car. And the one he had was bothering him because it didn't have as much get up and go as he wanted. I said, I didn't know that, Wendell. And he said, yeah. And I said, well, let's change. And he said, you mean it? And I said, yeah. He just hadn't mentioned it to me because he didn't think I'd want to change. He didn't think he didn't think it'd be good to ask me to change, and he wasn't trying to get me to do that. And I lost a car in that game. And ever since then, he's even gotten worse about wanting one that has get up and go. See, one's leased by one company, and one's being bought all the time and turned in every 2 years by another company. And so he's got the one that's getting bought, so he can choose what car he wants, where the other's leased by a whole with a fleet for everybody in the church and college and so forth. And so the last one, he said, I think I'll get a sports car. Wow. He and Mrs. DeCoster. Wow. I think I'll get a sports car. And I said, well, so Christian Womanhood is paying, the business car they have is a Firebird, a red Firebird. He said, well, it's no more money than the Chevy we've been having. I said, no, in fact, less. At the time he got it, was about $10,000. The Chevy we had before that was $12, $13, something like that. So I said, no, fine. So we've got a red Firebird. I felt better when I came to this little farmhouse of the DeCosters and found Mrs. DeCoster's red Camaro in there that I'm just having a real good time driving. But I didn't know my husband, that it really bugged him about the car not having the get-up. I didn't know. I just didn't know. When we had a little bit of decorating done at our house about 6-7 years ago, I hadn't known how much my husband liked to have a formal dining room and living room. I wouldn't care if we had one of anything formal. I just like everything informal. And so we have a downstairs that's just a mess. It's a family room, and I call it the Cracker Barrel because if any of you have seen the Cracker Barrel down south, they put everything just everywhere, And so I've got a Cracker Barrel downstairs, and I'm down there when he's not home. When he's home, I sit up in the formal, more formal, not that it's real formal, but more formal living room with him. I didn't know it. I didn't know how much he wanted something like that. Air conditioning, something like air conditioning. He wants a little of it, and I want all I can get. He's got a thyroid problem that causes him to get cold very, very fast, and I have some kind of a problem that I've had since I was born, where I get warm very, very fast. And so, people, these are the things you either give up your way cheerfully, and it's just not giving up your way once in a while. It's several times a day, willingly, and never mentioning it. Ephesians 5:33, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. If you reverence someone, you're going to, you know how we watch. I know how we watch for our preacher at First Baptist Church. We watch to see what he might want, and see if we could do any little thing that would make things a little better for him. Because we have a certain type of reverence for him, not worship, but for his position as the man of God. Well, certainly as our husband, we'd have a certain type of reverence. And the Word of God says, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. You want a relationship with him? Learn him. 1 Peter 3:1-2, likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, whether they're backslidden or unsaved, they also may without the word be won by the conduct or behavior of the wise, while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear. How could a husband resist a lady who was constantly trying to learn what he liked so she could fix things like he liked just as fast as possible? How could he resist? You want to put a few things down? Number one, now, you who do not have a husband at this time, if you're single, you're teenage, put it on down. Teenagers, this may be the last time you hear something like this before you're married, and you'll forget all about it. So I believe in time-release teaching, and I believe that this will come forth in your mind when you need it, just like a capsule. When you put it in your body, when you need the next dose of medicine, it explodes or something, and there comes that medicine out in you. And if you teenagers keep going and hearing things like you're hearing this weekend, when you need it, it'll explode, and you'll have it. You won't know where you got it. It won't matter. You've got it. That's the important thing. A lot of us older ladies, we didn't have these meetings. I never heard of them. We didn't have women's papers. We didn't have women's tapes. I never heard of them until 10 or 11 years ago. And so we've got an excuse. But you teenagers, you're without excuse. And because you're hearing things, and you're here and you're getting things. Or you people who have lost your husbands. Take these things down, because you're to teach younger women. But not only that, it applies just as much to a grandchild, a neighbor you're trying to win to the Lord, to the pastor. It applies to everyone. His eyes are what color? You know, when we first met our husbands, oh, Mom, they've got these green flecks in their gold and brown. Oh, when I look into his eyes, and now you don't remember what color they are. If somebody asked you for the sake of you couldn't remember exactly what color they were. Number two, his greatest area of hurt is what? His greatest area of hurt. What's hurt? What is he most hurt about? A relationship with his father, a lack of a relationship with his father or mother, or what he has not been able to accomplish that he wishes he could accomplish? Do you know? Now, you can't just take home this test and give it to him and say, fill this out, please. These questions are questions that if you live with a person a lifetime, you may not know the answer to every one of them. It's because you watch them, you listen to them, you pick up on what they say. You hear them talking to other people, you watch their eyes, and so this isn't something you just give to your neighbor, your grandchild, your husband, your children. It's something, though, that you think about. And because you're thinking these things, you're going to be talking with them and listening in a different way. His greatest area of hurt is what? Number three, he feels he has failed in what? He feels he has failed in what? You see, your son comes home and didn't make the football team. And you say, oh, that's all right, no problem, let's just get on with it. But how did you feel when you were a kid and you didn't make the cheerleading squad or the drama team or the debate team? Do you remember? It's not that easily gotten over. There's a time of loss in there, and it takes time to accept a loss. And some people have never worked their way through their hurts and losses. I feel the difference between hurt people and people who are hurt. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hurt people, wounded people. And all of us are hurt. We all get hurt. The difference between hurt people and those who get hurt is that the hurt people or wounded people have layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of losses or hurts that have never been dealt with. And so it causes them to be a hurt person. Now, I do not know whether the person that you want to build a relationship with is a hurt person or one who's gotten hurt. Now, if they're one who's gotten hurt, you can help them. You can help them through these stages of a loss. Denial. I didn't make that football team. I just can't believe I didn't make it. Denial. Anger. It makes me so mad. I tell you, if they had just, I could have done a lot. Bargaining. Maybe if I go tell the coach I'll do such and such, such and such, she'll let me make the football team. Depression. Everybody else but me made it. Acceptance. And there's where the land of happiness is. Acceptance of your loss and hurts. Acceptance is the last stage of loss or hurt. And accepting and saying, okay, I'll try next year. Or I'll try the music club. Or I'll try baseball. Or whatever it is. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And those of us who are the least happy are the ones who keep going back and forth in those stages. We accept and then we get angry again. And then we accept and then we get depressed again. Or we start bargaining again. Or we start denying again. The sooner you can get through those stages to the acceptance stage and keep there, the happier you will be about your losses and your hurts. But if you are married to, or if you have a child who is a hurt person, where do you think he feels he has failed? He feels he has failed in what? Number 4, he feels his dad was to or with him. Feels his dad was blank, harsh to him, or good to him, or good with him, or whatever. He feels his dad was blank to or with him. Number 5, he feels his mom was, and the same thing. Of course, our feelings toward our dads and moms, and people, most of us didn't have perfect dads and moms, and we're not perfect dads and moms. But I don't care if you're chronologically, the oldest lady here, and you haven't made in your heart, made it right with things that you're feeling bitter about your dad and mom, I know you're a very unhappy person. And of course, I know you have to go back and say, okay, maybe mom didn't do this, but here's what she did. And this is, and I can be thankful for all of these things. And I know your relationship with God can never be too trusting when you don't go back and say, maybe I couldn't trust Dad here and here. And maybe he did do this to me or whatever, but I do know he did these things, and I'm going to trust him in certain areas at least. And I'm going to accept the fact that I had the dad I had, and God let me have. What if Dr. Jack Hyles weren't accepting the fact that his dad was an alcoholic, who actually, Dr. Jack Hyles was an abused child. He was beat up against you've heard the story, up against the wall of a drugstore by an alcoholic father. So what if he hadn't accepted it and said, I'll build on that. I'll help poor kids. I'll help mothers who've been left by their husbands and help them help rear their children that are poor. He couldn't have been the happy person he is today. There would be no way. If he had, what he says is, my dad was the strongest man I ever knew, and when he wasn't drinking, he was so good to us. And most of us who are in his church do not have any bitterness toward his dad, because he's made us feel good toward his dad. And he's told us that his dad had a grocery store during the Great Depression and lost it. And then they had 2 children who were afflicted, and both died at 7 years of age. And he makes you feel sorrow toward the dad and compassion toward the dad, rather than, boy, I'd like to get a hold of that man, what he did to our preacher. And therefore, we've got a man who he could have been a hurt person who did nothing. He was, instead, yes, he was hurt, but he built on it, dealt with it, and built on it. Of course, he had a mother who helped him deal with it and build on it. Number 6, he feels blank about his age. Now, go on down through 15, and all of them are. he feels blank, and then I'll put the last part of them. 6 through 15, he feels blank, 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 blank. Okay, I'm not cursing, folks. Blankety, blank, blank, blank here. He feels blank about his age. Bad, good, about his weight, about his health. He feels blank about his age, weight, health. 9, he feels blank about his physical condition. You know how sometimes a person will say, oh yeah, I'm bald, no problem, but you know whether they have a problem over it. They got to joke, because if they don't joke, everybody else is going to joke. It's just like if you're fat. You got to laugh, because if you didn't laugh, you'd cry at the things people say. You say, oh, it doesn't bother him at all. Doesn't it? Are you sure? Number 10, he feels blank about his marriage. Mothers, that could be about your son. It could be about the person next door that you're trying to win to Christ. If you don't know them, you see, we don't really know people. He feels blank about his job. Fulfilled, or wishes he could get out of it as fast as possible, or what? About his children. About his retirement. Oh, it doesn't bother so-and-so that he has to retire. He doesn't care at all. And he may just be dying. You don't know. Maybe he isn't. Maybe he's the kind that has so many things planned to do that he really can't wait for his retirement. His work hasn't been that fulfilling, and he really, I don't know. About his car. About his house and ability to provide. 14, he feels blank about his car. 15, he feels blank about his house and his ability to provide. 16, he most likes blank for fun. I know what some of you are going to put in there. Isn't it something out? If men are hungry, or if they're tired, or if they want you, they get it. They try for sure. If they're tired, they just fall down and go to sleep. We're tired, we drag on, act like martyrs, a woman's work is never done, that type of thing, and half asleep all the time, If you watch a baby, or watch a little child, when they're tired, they drop in their tracks and get a nap. And you say, oh, well, I can't go to sleep that easily. Well, you told your kid to go to sleep. You said, lay there until you go to sleep. Or you told him, okay, if you don't go to sleep, just close your eyes and rest. You know what? If some of you would close your eyes and rest, you'd wake yourself up snoring. I knew I needed to get to bed as fast as I could last night, and I went down there to the little farmhouse, and little old farmhouse they put me in, and chose my bedroom for the night. No, I kept the same bedroom. Isn't that good of me? I kept the same bedroom every night. I'm sleeping on sheets that are 2 days old now. They haven't provided maid service. I don't know what's the matter with the Christners. So I don't start providing it either, because if I come in there and something's been moved, I'm gonna be spooked. I know just where everything is, because So I went down there and I was all wound up from the meeting last night. I thought, well, how am I going to get sleep? I better read. And I thought, no, I don't need it. Light on one more minute. And I checked my watch, and I'd wash my face, and I don't think I brushed. I don't know if I brushed my teeth or not. But anyway, we left here at 9, and at 9:30 I turned out the light. And I thought, this isn't going to work, because usually I can go right to sleep. But, I'd just gotten through with a big speaking thing, and we'd just been having a good time here, and I thought, I'm too wound up, and I said, okay, now, Marlene, just lay here, because you need to be ready for tomorrow, and you're the only speaker, and if you ain't there, what's going to happen? I know Brother Christner doesn't want to have those ladies all day long. And so I twisted and turned much longer than usual, but probably not more than 15 minutes. And that's, I was out, had a good night's sleep. I just made myself, every couple minutes I thought, I'll go ahead and turn on the light and get up and do something. I thought, no, don't you dare. And then I'd start thinking about something that was said, or something I ought to get up and write down to remember today. And I'd say, don't you dare. And pretty soon I was just asleep. You know, we need to get our sleep. And you need to get your, you know, you'll go all day and say, you know, I went all day and didn't eat. Well, if you're trying to lose weight, that doesn't work, because when you do eat, you'll eat 2 pies and 3 loaves of bread. You'll be so starved. And your blood sugar will be down. You'll be mad at your kid, and I think that's when some people have abused their children. You know, they haven't taken care of themselves right. You know, and, you know, men see to it that they get the creature comforts one way or another, usually. He most likes blank for fun. Number 17, he feels blank about his relationship to Christ. Hopeless, scared, happy. Like I say, don't go asking me, how do you feel about your relationship to Christ? You know, that's not going to do it, folks. I've tried that with my kids. They come home from school, well, what happened at school? Nothing. Nothing. I said, all day long they went to school and we paid for their tuition at that Christian school and nothing happened? You know, it's got to be that you just sit down or you're working along with them and they just start telling you about what Susie did at school. You've got to listen. You've got to look. Stop, look, and listen, like at the railroad crossings. You got to stop, you got to look, and you got to listen. And you got to do that a lot. Number 17, he feels blank about his relationship to Christ. Number 18, he thinks blank about death. Number 19, he feels blank about parties honoring him. You know, some people, you say, oh, yeah, let's have a birthday party. I think every husband ought to have a birthday party, but some of them you ought to go at it a little different way from others, because some of them don't know what to do the reason they say, don't do anything for my birthday, is because they don't know how to respond to it. So fix it so he doesn't even have to respond to it. How does he feel about parties honoring him? Then work around it. Number 20, he is blank about his friendships. You know, aggressive or passive or what about his friendships? Number 21, he feels blank about his education or mental abilities. People, that's all I've got. But you could go on and on and on. If you really want a relationship with someone, this is what you do. And you watch and you stop and you look and you watch and you listen. How is your relationship with your husband, your child, your mother, your dad, your father-in-law, your mother-in-law? Why don't you build a relationship?